And today we're taking a closer look at the Philippine job market as the latest labor force survey reveals a drop in both underemployment and unemployment, a hopeful sign for workers and employers alike. Now, what do these numbers really mean, and how do they align with the country's long-term economic goals? We'll also discuss the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025, which highlights global labor market trends and what countries like the Philippines can do to prepare for the future. To help us make sense of these developments, we're joined by Carlo Oñate, the Legislative Officer of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, or TUCP, and the TUCP party list. As the country's largest labor center, they're at the forefront of advocating for workers' rights and fair employment policies. Carlo, welcome to Basis Points.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Carla, interesting junction we're at right now. We just got the figures. Although there were improvements in unemployment and underemployment, the improvements were modest, right? Unemployment, that rate dropped to 3.2% in November 2024 from 3.6% in the same month last year. Underemployment also improved to 10.8% from 12.6%, so still double digits. Now, these decreases, are they due to seasonal factors, or is there something more sustainable here?
Certainly, because this is the November 2024 labor force survey. So most of these improvements, no matter how modest they are actually driven by holiday seasonal jobs. So once the new year, 2025, Filipino workers will have now to find a job because the seasonal jobs are already gone by January, February at most.
That's right. There's a 2-month lag because these are November figures we're looking at. What's the real picture on the ground after the holiday rush is over? I mean, everyone hires for the holiday season, especially in the retail sector. Once that's done and dusted, what does the real picture look like?
Once that is over, employment will go back to the 95% mark. But let me just point out the anomaly in computing for the employment rate. PSA asks one who works for at least 1 hour during the reference week that they conducted the survey whether they do at least 1 hour of work, and they are already employed. So the real picture, we feel, is poor jobs quality still.
So
Double-digit
for an
underemployment.
hour, whether they're paid or unpaid. But at the same time, Carlo, this is an international baseline.
Yes, it is an international standards, but it cannot capture the Philippine reality wherein contractualization remains the norm, which translates and reflects in the double-digit underemployment, which has been there before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now after the pandemic. Double-digit underemployment means lower job quality, which is something that we have to focus on rather than the quantity of jobs out there.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we improve the quality of jobs?
Yes, the Philippines do not have a scarcity of employment policies. We have labor departments, labor and employment plan. We have the Trabajo para sa Bayan law, which they consider a landmark legislation, creates 3-year, 6-year, and 10-year plan. But the plan is not there yet. It has been signed way back, at least a year old now, and still we do not have the plan. So we, the TUCP, pitches actually the TUCP jobs agenda to be central to these employment plans, and they have to be implemented in full. The jobs agenda, we say, let's focus on infrastructure because that is infrastructure jobs and has multiplier effects. At the same time, we say let's focus on rebranding the Philippines as an investment destination through labor rights compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great thing to rebrand the Philippines as a premier investment destination. Now, as we look into 2025, what is the wish list for workers for the year?
The wish list for workers remain wage hike, at least 150 pesos, and contractualization. And now, since this is also an election year, they want these issues to be front and center in these 2025 elections. Therefore, they need a voice in Congress, they need a voice in decision-making levels of the government.
Now, let's look at the numbers. The request is for 150 peso daily wage increase across the board. Now, with inflation averaging 3.2% as of for the whole of 2024, how can businesses and labor groups work together to ensure that the wage adjustments meet the workers' needs and the needs of the employers as well?
Employers groups, labor groups, and the government has been sitting down for the last 35 years in the regional wage boards, which increase minimum wages per region. But now, all regional minimum wages except the National Capital Region remains below the poverty line. So we feel that it is only right and just now that after 35 years, we finally increased workers' wages by at least 150 pesos.
Okay, on another front, speaking of increases, there's the SSS contribution rate increase. Now, that rate increase is set to go up from 14% in 2024 to 15% this March. It's sparking significant debate. What is your stand on this issue?
While we understand that additional deductions are needed to sustain the fund life as mandated by the law of the SSS Act, we note with grave concern the reality that there are tens of billions, regardless if it's 89 or 46 billion, that remains unremitted, uncollected from delinquent employers. And now, it is as if workers are made to bear the brunt of paying additional premiums, when in fact, those who have more in life, especially certain unscrupulous employers, are not even remitting or paying their due.
Okay, well, that also came from a difficult time for employers during the pandemic, but they're seeing what can be done about that. On another front, let's talk about the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report for 2025. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, 170 million new jobs will be added globally by 2030. On the flip side, 92 million jobs will be displaced. How do you think this is going to affect? What are the implications for the Philippine labor market?
Yes, this will not only change but transform the Philippine labor market. I note that more than 30% of those employed are actually in simple, routine, elementary occupations. These are actually the low-skill level jobs. And these
Such
as household cleaning, maintenance, some clerical tasks, and these are at greater risk of automation come the future of work. And we really need to upskill and reskill our workers, invest in our human resources so that they are never left behind amid the challenge and change.
Right, the demand is for roles in big data specialists, fintech engineers, AI experts. Basically, the report highlights how the global labor market is changing in favor of tech-based advancements and green transitions, and economic and demographic shifts are affecting that. So what do we need to do on a national level, from social safety nets to education? What do we need to do to beef up the workforce, the Filipino workforce of the future?
The TUCP has been pushing for the longest time a just transition program. Business, government, and labor should sit down and let's negotiate how do we upskill and reskill our workers for the new jobs that there will be. Those are, as you have mentioned, digital jobs and green jobs. We note also that there has been, in the World Economic Forum report, it is actually farm workers that top the jobs that we need. And so we need to invest also in our agricultural sector. 60% of those employed are actually in the services sector, leaving behind agriculture, which is only at 20%. So we have to invest in agriculture so that our young workers will also go into agriculture, not because it is necessarily needed by the economy, but because this is high-paying and high-productive industry in the future.
And lastly, what's your vision for the labor force in 2025, the Filipino labor force?
The Filipino labor force, in one word, it could be that it remains evolving. It is a work in progress. Until and unless we finally get those living wages, security of tenure, and full labor rights, Filipino workers will remain brave, will remain fearless in achieving what is only right and just for them.
And we've got our work cut out for us. So thank you for your time, Carlo Oñate.
Thank you very much.